Well, I guess I'm gonna talk about job analysis from the aspect of the classification review. Um, this is the form we send out to incumbents when we're getting ready to start a classification review. But our classification review is really different than what testing is like. We ask a lot of open-ended questions because we want to get at some of the stuff that we might not already have. Currently, I'm gonna pull up a spec. This is a spec for Management Analyst 2. And what we do is we start off with a spec, an existing spec, unless we're trying to create something new. The definition of the job is what drives the classification. So hopefully, when we do our questionnaire, we'll ask them, their name, the top, and everything, how long they've been performing the job. But we also ask them that second line, how would you describe the main purpose or function of your current work assignment? That is like the essence of the job and like why it exists. A lot of people don't know what that means. They will just like fill out their duties, and it's like, But as long as the duties support what the main purpose of the job is about, we can kind of go with that. Like for Management Analyst 2, which is the spec I had pulled up here, the main purpose of the job is performing research, analysis, recommendation, and consultation to management on diverse or complex issues and matters having a fiscal or operational impact. Now, when we're doing our part of this job analysis that we call a job analysis, it's pretty like an abbreviated job analysis because it's nothing like what Team A and Team D does. We don't do all the statistical stuff. We don't send out task statements and stuff like that. We're actually like trying to extract all the task statements out of the incumbents when they fill out these questionnaires. So we go back to the questionnaire. We ask them questions like, who's your supervisor? What's your working title? Because some people don't even know what their real title is. They don't know what their civil service title is. So we ask them what their working title is, work location, who their immediate supervisor is, which comes in handy because on the last page of the questionnaire, the supervisor is going to have to like verify what they wrote is true. So it helps to know, because sometimes you'll get, my immediate supervisor is so-and-so, but then somebody else has reviewed the questionnaire. It's like, well, who's this person? Sometimes the person who reviewed the questionnaire is not necessarily the immediate supervisor. That's why we ask for my supervisor reports to, and most likely, sometimes it's like the next supervisor up. So as long as somebody in their line of supervision has like reviewed this thing, we're okay with that. Down here under, I currently supervise the following employees. You want them to list their names and classification titles. And we also put a definition of supervision, because people don't realize when we mean supervision means to approve leave requests, recommend disciplinary actions, and conduct and sign performance evaluations. Some people think because they lead a crew of guys out on a truck that they're their supervisor. You're not a supervisor, you're just a lead worker. So we want to get at who you actually supervise. Next page, this is where we have them list their 6 most important job duties and the percentage of time they spend doing them. And which is, think about your job. Can you think of like the 6 most important job duties, and can you break down the percentages? This is kind of hard for a lot of people. So it says, for your current work assignment, describe in detail the 6 most major responsibilities that take up the greatest percentage of your time. And this is where people will sometimes people just put one word: drive, 50%, clean, 60%, it's like, but we also want everything to add up to 100%. So when they list their duties, down here at the bottom, we say these responsibilities should total 100%. So sometimes they're just combining stuff into maybe one or two categories to try to get to the 100%. I had somebody the other day break something down that's like so detailed. It was like 29, 25, 11, 1. They broke it down just like that. So, and we get these for like, they don't have to fill the questionnaire out. We tell them, do we have to do this? No, but it's kind of like voting. If we make changes to the spec, The changes we make are based on like the information we get from you. If you don't submit any information, you can't complain about what comes out of it. So I'll tell them that for sure. The next part is describe some examples of work projects you have completed most recently or are currently working on. This way you want to know like what kind of special projects they might be working on that maybe like fall outside of their daily duties. Because sometimes, you get stuck on a special project. You're not going to be working on it this time next year, or you might only do it once. But this helps to figure out like what kind of skills they may need to work on the type of special projects that they've been assigned to. Or if their special project is something that's like something that maybe they shouldn't even be doing. I don't know. This is how we list what certifications or licenses are required in order to perform your current job duties. Some of them don't know exactly what the minimum qualities are as far as like required certifications, but they do know that they were required to get some kind of certification sometimes. So we want them to list all the certifications they may have gotten. It might be like a Class A CDL, it might be an EPA certification or license or something, but they just list like all the certifications that they possess. The knowledge, skills, and abilities, what are important or helpful in order to be successful in performing your job. We might get a hodgepodge of stuff. People like write down stuff because we're not really guiding them unless they call and ask questions. We just let them like go on it on their own, and I leave they can email me or whatever, or call me up and say, I have a question. Like when Kat and I did it together, we said, okay, on the front of the page we put my phone number and email. We had Kat's email on there so they can call either one of us if they had any questions. Are you required to drive a motor vehicle in order to perform your job duty? If they say yes or no, like if they say yes, and if everybody who fills this questionnaire out says yes, maybe a driver's license is something we might want to consider putting on the spec as a minimum qualification. If they say, but if one of them says no, well, if everybody's not driving, then we're not going to require everybody, them to have a driver's license on the spec if it's not required by everybody. What equipment do you regularly operate to perform your job? We're just trying to get at, what type of equipment they use and everything. Some of these things might get put into some of the task statements too, or even the knowledge, skills, and abilities. But we'll talk about that here more in a minute. What equipment are you responsible for repairing or maintaining? And I made a point to put as part of your job duties, because sometimes people maintain or fix things and it's like it falls outside of their job duty, and it's almost, sometimes it gets to the point where they're almost making themselves misclassified by repairing or fixing things, and they're not really, maybe not even be qualified to repair or fix something. So, but they do. And then we also want to list what computer software programs or applications they use, because I know here in the last few years we've been like adding in the knowledge, skills, and abilities, the ability to operate a computer and related software. Because sometimes you get like people who've been in classification for like 35, 40 years, and they refuse to touch a computer. Like, I don't want to do with a computer. So if it's something that's part of your job, that's required for the job, then we want to make sure we include, some kind of computer knowledge or even an ability. This is part about, as part of your job, do you interact with non-English speaking individuals? Some people say yes, some people say no. I haven't included ability to understand Spanish yet on the spec, but it might be coming. It might be coming real soon. Or Somali, but it says, we ask what other languages other than English do you encounter on a regular basis, and do you speak multiple languages? And then we give them a chance, in order for your job to be fully understood, please describe any additional information about yourself, your skills, your job, or your department or division that might be useful to us. So we give them a chance to like give an open-ended answer as far as like what they think they bring to the table or something special about the job or whatnot, and they can list all that. And we make them sign the affidavit. I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge and believe that this is an accurate and complete description of the duties performed by me in my current position. So we want them to sign it and date it. We want them they can scan it and email it back to us only after they get the supervisor's page, which is the next page. Sometimes these people will send it to their supervisor Then the supervisor will have it sitting on their desk for everyone, like, where's this questionnaire? I don't know, I gave it to my supervisor a month ago. And the supervisor has it sitting in his office, so we had to contact the supervisor and be like, are you doing something about this? And then it says, is the employee's description of the duties complete or accurate? And we give the supervisor a chance to like say yes or no. And if they say no, please describe here any additional information that helps provide a complete and accurate understanding of the position and responsibilities described in the questionnaire. I don't get a whole lot of information here. Usually supervisor will just say yes and move on because I think they're in a hurry and they just want to like get it over with. We also ask them, we tell them where they can find the spec online, but we ask them with respect to the position's assigned duties, do you believe the minimum qualifications are suitable for a new employee at the time of hire? So we ask, for their input about the minimum quals, about the probationary period, and then knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then down here, we give them an opportunity to add in the additional information about the minimum quals, probationary period, and knowledge, skills, and abilities that may not be included in the questionnaire or may not be on the spec. And we ask them how long have they been supervising employees performing this job, and then they sign and date it. And then we go over to the spec. Sometimes we might need to go out and meet with an incumbent or whatever, especially if the questionnaire is like so confusing. It's like, I don't understand what this means or what this job does. Like one in particular was like network something another. I don't know anything about some of these computer, classes and stuff that DOT does. So it's like if I run into one of those, I'm like, I gotta find somebody who knows more than I do because what do I know? So I need somebody to break it down to the lay person like myself. So we'll have to go out and talk to somebody. But for the most part, what we do is we'll take the questionnaires, look at them. I've even gone to the point of like making like an Excel spreadsheet where I'll list like the different job duties that everybody's listed, and I'll try to see like how many of them are common amongst each other. And if it's something that's pretty common amongst all the people, incumbents, but it's not listed on the examples of work, I might add a duty. But we'll put it in bold, for the department to review so they'll know that we added something new.
Kat referred to like when there are times where she wants to make sure she samples different job functions. Do you know that going into it sometimes where you need to go to these different locations and make sure you get at least one back from that location or that type of job? Or
I don't particularly do that because since I send them out to everybody, I'm giving everybody the opportunity. And if they don't want to take advantage of it, that's on them.
Rich, how many projects do you have a year? 38?
30 some, 33, 34. Yeah, 34 classification projects a year. I have almost 20 compliance reviews.
Yeah, see, I have a little less.
Yeah, we're trying to give all the compliance reviews to them PA1s.
If you happen to be reviewing a class specification and you have somebody that's due for a compliance review, if they submit that questionnaire, you can fill out that compliance review form without having to go visit with them unless you feel you need more information. So we can use those as well, kind of overlap, but the odds of that happening, you might want to play the lottery sometimes.
Yeah, I got lucky. I got lucky. I got like 5.
Yeah, he got lucky this year. I had to go out and see one of my gals that she used one word answers on her percentage. So I'm like, definitely need more information.
Well, see, and what we do is when we get our assignments, we don't even really get our assignments. We almost get to pick our assignments for the compliance reviews. So we get a list of compliance reviews, and then as a team, we sit in a meeting, and it's like, all right, I know my classification projects, and I see these lists of compliance reviews. I'm like, oh, there's like 4 people on these compliance reviews that are in classifications that I'm reviewing this year. So I want to take these compliance reviews because I'm going to send questionnaires out to them. If they thoroughly complete the questionnaire, then I don't have to go out and meet with them. And I let them know if they don't fill a questionnaire out, when I come out to meet with them for the compliance reviews, I'm like, if you would have filled out that questionnaire I sent you, I wouldn't even have to come out here and sit with you. But now I got to sit with you for 20 minutes. Hopefully you're properly classified. So here's what we do when we're like drafting the changes to the spec. Like anything that's in bold is stuff we're adding. The stuff with the double strike through is the stuff we're proposing to have deleted. And we'll do all that throughout the spec. And then before we do anything with it, we'll show it to the department we'll send it out to the HR people and everything in the different departments so they can review it. And like sometimes, we'll send this stuff out based on the information that we got from the questionnaires and stuff. But also, I'll send send an email out to the HR managers and maybe like the managers at the department and say, here's some of the preliminary changes or changes we are proposing. Is there anything else you'd like to see on the spec or whatnot? Like this one in particular, this is a merge. We're merging sewer, airplane mode. We're merging, well anyway, we're merging sewer service supervisor emergency into sewer maintenance supervisor 2. They're both in sewer, they're both CWA, they're both pay grade 56, and they're both, so they're basically going to take 2 classifications and make them into one, but they're going to still move them into like sewer maintenance supervisor 2. So with that, there was a series of sewer maintenance worker, sewer service worker emergency, and sewer service supervisor emergency. So since sewer service supervisor is merging into sewer maintenance supervisor 2, that just leaves sewer maintenance worker kind of like out there by sewer service worker out there by itself. So we're also like going to revise that one and make it sewer maintenance investigator. The sewer is driving me nuts. Sewer maintenance investigator. So we actually made the title sewer maintenance investigator. But then the manager was like, well, can we make sewer maintenance worker, can we put investigates in there? I'm like, no, we don't want to do that because we already got a classification that investigates. I'm not trying to misclassify or give them duties that is mainly done by another classification. So we try to avoid putting duties in there that other classifications do. Sometimes the supervisors or managers will want us to put in examples of work, may act as a supervisor in their absence. We're not going to, we steer away from those kind of duties. We don't want them to may do another classification's job. This spec is just for like this classification only.
So I have a question. It looks like some of the tasks normally associated with being a supervisor are being removed. Like the disciplinary action or overseeing problems in the field. Why would those be coming out of a supervisor job?
I don't think they're coming all the way out. I think they got moved to another location. They got separated out into its own thing, I think. Signs off on performance reviews, approves leave requests, and recommends disciplinary action. So I added it, because since it was combined in another duty, I didn't want it like double barreled like that, because one minute they're talking about supervision and then the next part it was talking about something else. It's like they were totally unrelated. So I wanted to separate it out into its own separate supervisory kind of duty, including signing off on performance appraisals, approves leave, Then they wanted to add in, or in the investigation of complaints such as water back, that had nothing to do with supervision. So I wanted to separate that out and pull it out and make it its own thing.
So they would have an examples of supervision section then?
Yeah, that was kind of like the last thing, was like the whole supervision thing. But sometimes we have people who think if everything is stuff that's listed on here, they think they have to do everything. It says right there, examples of work. These are just examples. Any one position may not include all the duties listed, nor do the examples cover all the duties you may perform. But what these duties do is they support the definition. So you get a definition, which is the main purpose of the job, but the examples of work are the supporting duties to support why it exists the way it does.
Okay, thank you.
I think a couple things too I'd like to point out on a job specification. The definition should be unique for every classification. So we shouldn't have a definition under one classification that has the exact same one under another. So that this defines the job. This is how this job classification is unique. And then under the examples of work, you'll see that they are very close to task statements, but they aren't necessarily in the truest sense what we talked about this morning in terms of task statements. A lot of them are, but you might see double-barreled ones. But keep in mind what we're trying to do is in 2 pages summarize this entire job classification. Yeah. So that's why we call them examples of work, not necessarily task statements. So that way we can get more information or as much information as we can about the job and still do that within the 2 pages that we have available to us.
And the funny thing with the classification stuff is too, is like each one of us are working on them. You can kind of almost incorporate your own personal preferences sometimes, as long as it's, you know, not going outside the whole realm of working with civil service. But I have a pet peeve. I don't like and or. If I see and or, I take the and the slash out, because I can't stand and or. Either it's and or it's or. It can't be, and or is all inclusive anyway. So sometimes you'll see that stuff that I'm working on, you'll see they'll list something like performs like mows grass, and or weed whack. You can say mows grass or weed whack. If they mow grass and weed whack, it's not gonna hurt anybody. But if you put in there mows grass and weed whacks, but they only mow grass, especially in like the minimum qualifications, if you list like something like that and you do like an and or, it's like, do they have to have it or do they not have to have it? Let me see if there's anything in here. Here's a may statement, which is kind of funny to me because all the statements listed in examples of work are may. But then you got a may. May give testimony in court, which means you may give testimony. But you know what? It says participates in employment interview process of potential candidates. You may do that too, but we don't put a may in front of it. But we tend to like put some of the more important or more frequent duties towards the top of the spec.
And you're saying that since they all are intended to serve as examples, that it shouldn't be taken, the and/or is not relevant, because
Right.
it's one of many examples.
Yeah. And then like even like the minimum qualifications, it says completion of 12th school grade, 2 years of experience supervising employees engaged in the investigation, which is, I added that in there, construction, maintenance, and repair of water, wastewater, stormwater collection systems, underground utilities, or general construction work. Now, if I would have put like and or and.
That would drive me crazy when it
I
comes to
know.
test time, because how do I decide, looking at your app, if it's an and or an or? So unless he tells me it's an and or, because right there it says and, investigation, construction, maintenance, and repair, I'm looking for you to have all of those, not one of them. And then down below it says or, underground utilities, or general construction work. Okay, depending on what your job is, I'm cool with either kind of work.
Right. So like you might have somebody who has 2 years experience supervising employees just doing general construction work. Then they would qualify then, right?
Engaged in, as long as repair of, investigation, construction, repair of general construction work. Yeah.
So it's like we fight over words and commas and stuff all the time because we're analytical. That's where we are analysts. That's what we do. Sometimes a 5-minute conversation takes an hour. You know, when the shit only took 5 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're sitting here looking at the apps, you appreciate the fact that they did that though.
Yep.
Because otherwise, because people don't write in full sentences or things that fit into that box.
Yeah, and then here's knowledge, skills, and abilities. Some of this stuff we put in here is just like the preference of the supervisors or whatever. They want somebody to have methods, materials, because we have no other way of knowing because we haven't done the testing yet. And we don't do a thorough job analysis like this, so we have no way of knowing without them just telling us that they need certain knowledge, skills, and abilities. And I know sometimes, you know, when testing like Kat and them, they'll actually will pull up our specs and they'll pull some of the stuff that we use, and then they can get more in-depth information from the people when they do their job analysis. Our job analysis is just kind of cursory. We're just trying to get something on paper. And that's about it. Any questions?
So I do want to make one distinction. So we talked about job or task statements. We talked about examples of work. I also want to talk about 2 other terms that we use a lot when we're talking about job analysis or talking about jobs. One is task duties. So when we're talking about task duties, typically what we're talking about is a grouping of tasks that kind of cluster together into one like general duty of the job. Very similar to the term task category, which again is a grouping of task statements that group together into one task category. I think the big difference between the two is with the task category, at least the way we use task categories on our team, is when we group those together, we'll also define those. We'll have a definition of this particular task category and the things that might be grouped within, the types of tasks that might be grouped within that, so that we have an understanding of where they might fit. So when he was showing those examples of work and he was asking for like general duties from people, and he was asking the percentage of how much time we spend doing stuff or how important they are, those percentages, we often will try to get that information as well with our task clusters, like how much of your time, how important is this, and on 100% of your job, how important is this grouping of tasks. It can be very helpful in terms of showing representativeness of the job.
Well, I know when I was on Team D, when we were doing the job analysis, it would be like 250 task statements. There's no way you're going to go through and try to like link all that stuff. So it's like we got to break them into categories, a little more manageable.
All right, so we'll break, come back in about 5-10 minutes.